The town of Farmington. Respecting history, planning the future.
Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Farmington Town Council meeting and ask you to join us with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Tonight, the first thing on our agenda is the public hearing. Paula, would you read it, please?
Legal notice, Town of Farmington public hearing. A public hearing will be held on Tuesday, December 11, 2018, at 7:05 p.m. in the Town Hall Council Chambers to amend Chapter 51, Pensions, of the Farmington Town Code, dated at Farmington, Connecticut, this 27th day of November 2018. Kathleen A. Egan, Town Manager.
Thank you. Erica.
This is a very simple ordinance change. If you recall, last time we approved the changes to the Board of Ed non-certified contract. It's the Farmington Public Schools Employees United, part of the ATF. And after we approve those changes, we have to go through an ordinance change to make make the actual changes to what the pension plan now reads. So really simply, basically, the town is the responsible party to negotiate all pension benefits with the board employees and the non-certified employees, and this group represents all the clerical, the secretarial staff, the custodians, the paraprofessionals. It's actually quite a large unit. It's the largest unit in our defined benefit pension plan. It's about 63% of our plan. So as you might know, we have changed a lot of the other new employees back in 2011, 2012. We closed the DB plan to most employees except for police and fire have an option. But for all other employees, the pension is closed, and this is in line with that. And it's the same system. They were going to go to a defined contribution plan, the 401 plan, where the town puts in 6% and the employee puts in 6%. So it's a matching of 6-6. And it's based on base salary, not on overtime or anything like that. I don't know why there. Obviously, we're doing this to control contributions made to the town by the town to the pension plan. The Board of Education actually does not make their contribution for their employees. The town, it's on our side of the books, if you will. So we are paying that on a yearly basis. And out of that pension contribution, 42% of that comes from board employees. So what we've done was, we bring them in line with what other town employees are doing, and to decrease the long-term liability. It's not going to save tons of money right away. It's going to be a gradual process. It'll take years, honestly, to get to a tipping point. And this will take effect July 1. So any employees hired by the Board of Ed after July 1, 2019 will be in a DEC plan. So simply all we did in the definition section of the pension document, where we talk about the definition of an employee and who's available to be in that DB plan, Chapter 51, we simply, and you have a new sheet on your desk because there was a typo, but you'll see in red there, effective July 1, 2019, Farmington Public Schools Employees United, ATF, members hired after this date will not be eligible to be part of this plan. And that's all we have to do to make that happen. Any questions? Any questions? Nope.
Now, anyone from the audience that has any questions, please ask Erica. Okay, thanks. Thank you, Erica. So we will close the hearing at 7:04. Okay, next item, public comment. Are there any public comments? And if so, please come up to the podium, and you have 5 minutes, and please tell us your name and address. Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. Reading of the minutes.
I move to approve the November 13th, 2018 Town Council meeting minutes.
Second.
Any corrections or changes to the minutes? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Any communications? No? Report of the committees. Yukon, no report. Land acquisition.
Land Acquisition Committee will be meeting this coming Thursday at 5 p.m. upstairs on the first floor in the Planning Development Conference Room, and we will have further discussions in executive session this evening.
Okay. Green efforts.
Green Efforts Committee met last week to further discuss our plans as a committee to reduce the amount of waste. That's the focus for the committee, and we're very pleased to see these new cups for town council members. But our first priority really, it will be focusing on restaurants, and we're working on creating most likely a checklist that we will provide to restaurants as ways that they can, as steps they can take to reduce waste. And we're exploring other options in terms of creating a survey or other opportunities for restaurants to let us know what steps they're taking, and potentially working with the Explore Farmington page to highlight restaurants that are, what steps they're taking in order to reduce their waste. And then ultimately this will spread. The idea is that it will move from restaurants to other categories of businesses and potentially the schools on steps that can be taken for reduction of waste. Our next meeting is January 7th. It's a Monday due to scheduling conflicts in January, and it will be at 7 p.m. here in Town Hall. I believe it will be in this room, but I'm not positive.
Okay, thank you. FHS Ad Hoc Committee survey.
Yep, so the Ad Hoc Community Survey Committee had a joint meeting on November 27th with the Facility and Financial Ad Hoc Committee, where we presented the results of the community survey, along with our findings. We presented highlights and some recommendations, followed by a discussion. The Survey Ad Hoc and the Facility and Financial Ad Hoc Committees will be presenting our overall findings and recommendations from both committees to the Town Council and the Board of Education at a joint meeting in January, which I think we're going to talk about finalizing a date for that, likely January 22nd. So that's the update.
Thank you. Okay, FHS Ad Hoc Facility and Financial Committee.
As Beth said, we had a joint meeting with the survey committee, which was great. They had an opportunity to present the results and their findings from the townwide survey, and the Finance and Facility Committee had an opportunity to ask questions. It was a really good discussion. Our next meeting for the Finance, Facility and Finance Committee is on Thursday, December 13th. That's this Thursday. And we plan on finalizing our committee's findings and recommendations for the Town Council.
Okay, and that's at 6 p.m.?
Yes, at 6 p.m.
Okay. At the high school? At the high school.
In the library.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Farmington Village Center Committee.
Yes, our meeting that we had last week was focused on reviewing the RFQs that went out. So the committee actually went through several RFQs, and we narrowed it down to 3 candidates to move forward for an RFP. We also discussed how the interview process will work once we get that information back in from those individuals that we selected to move forward. That meeting is scheduled for January 10th here in this room at the Town Council Chambers.
Okay, thank you. Auditor Ad Hoc Committee.
No news since the last time we met. Our next meeting is this Thursday, where we are going to be reviewing the RFP, and that will go out subsequent to that meeting.
Thank you. Okay, any other committee reports that were not? Reports of the council chair and liaison. The council chair, I just want to let everyone know that I was at the Farmington Valley Collaborative meeting last week, and there there was a lot of discussion about, beginning discussion about budgets. People are just entering into their budgets. But interestingly enough, some of the towns talked about the possibility of, they seem to be, the goal was in the 2% range. Simsbury, Avon, East Granby, we're talking about that range, which was interesting just in light of what their town had to deal with at this point. But we're all in that process now. Another conversation was about bears and how the towns have in this northwest corner have had such a terrible time right now with bears entering their people's homes. They had talked about many different times it had happened, and livestock, and the number of different examples of what's been going on, and the concerns for people and in the area. They are talking about the possibility of they're reaching out to a couple of our representatives were there, Leslie Hill, who will be a new representative, and Kevin Whitkos's aide was there to talk about the issues, and they're concerned about it, and possibly moving forward with something, whether it be just regional efforts or possibly going to they will go to the legislature and talk about possibilities of help. And one of the things was DEEP is in support of having some kind of hunting season. They're talking about that. They don't know what will come of any of it, but there's a lot of discussion right now about how to address the problems. Another discussion that we had was one about vaping and tobacco use and what some of the communities are doing and raising the age from 18 to 21, and how some of the communities have done that on their own. And that was just a discussion about what problems you're having, what in the communities, and particularly with the high school and schools. So I would like to, we'll find out what's going on here and see. But it's a very interesting topic, and we'll see what our region and others are doing as the months and days proceed. One of the other things they talked about was that the governor-elect is going around to some of the towns and cities and meeting and talking about what people feel are some of the needs and some of the concerns. And I don't know, we haven't been approached yet, but we'll see if that's something that see if we are approached as well with the collaborative or whatever to talk with the governor. So we'll see about that as well. Also discussion about regional work, working together. Some of the communities are having a hard time actually hiring different officials in zoning positions, in dispatch, and different officials in the town, and they're working together to share them. So that was interesting. But just a lot of discussion about what's going on in our area and possibilities for the future. So, and we look forward to the next meeting in January. Will be will be the new legislators and what's happening with the new governor. So more to come. Board of Education liaison.
Okay, the Board of Education met last night at the Irving Robbins Middle School. Ed Manfredi, the district's department chair for health and wellness and phys ed, was actually recognized at that meeting for receiving a professional honor award from the Connecticut Association of Health, Phys ed, Recreation, and Dance. He received that award last month. The IAR principal, Scott Hurwitz, and the assistant principal, Nilda Irizarry, presented to the board ways in which the IAR community supports students' social and emotional growth and development. And their theme is respect, responsibility, resilience, and safety. So they're focusing on that this year. Stresses things like kindness, compassion, and productivity. So kind of hitting the other skills other than academic skills and supporting students that way in those middle school years. And the 2019-2020 school calendar was approved by the board last night, so that will come out soon. And their next meeting is January 14th, and that's at the high school in the library.
Thank you. I was just wondering,
Beth, could I have the name of the person who got the award?
Sure. Ed Manfredi, Manfredi, and he's the department chair for health and wellness for Farmington.
Thank you.
I just had a question about the calendar. I know at one time they were talking about statewide calendars. Has that been
It's
something?
regional, not statewide, and
It is regional right now?
Yep, and they've moved towards that, and I think this will be the second year that it's been officially in line with the region. But individual districts still have some discretionary days to work with depending on their community. So. But yes, that's in effect.
Oh, interesting. Thank you. Chamber.
No report.
Okay. Economic Development.
The December meeting of the Economic Development Commission was canceled. Nothing to report.
Farmington Historic District.
Nothing to report.
Housing Authority.
The Housing Authority met last on November 14th. The director reported that they have a wait list for Maple Village, which is the town's subsidized housing for elderly and disabled. It's not out of the ordinary that we have a waiting list, but right now it's at 78 singles and 5 couples. The town's housing authority scored a 93% on the Section 8 Management Assessment Program, which measures the performance of public housing agencies that administer the Housing Choice Voucher. So we're doing very well there. And I think the way Nancy Perrin explained it, there are 10 points that they'll never be able to get just because of there's a couple programs that we don't participate in or can't participate in based on our community. So they're doing very well. The next meeting is December 12th, and that's a holiday gathering and combined business meeting.
Okay, thank you. Human Relations.
Human Relations met November 28th. The commission is working with Rose Ponte to organize a conversation/educational session with local small businesses to talk about disability issues, accessibility, and employment. So that'll be coming up. And they're also coordinating with staff at the IR Middle School. IR has a diversity network that's a student group with faculty advisors, and they're going to look to collaborate with that group on events and activities around different topics on diversity. And they're also following up with town staff. The commission is on the sign placement in the village in the areas that were a part of the Route 4 road improvement project, because there's concern that some of those were in sidewalks, and I know that there's been some progress made, but that's one of their issues that they're following. And the next meeting is January 30th.
Okay. Thank you. Library Board.
The Farmington Library will be hosting the Challenge Cup on February 22nd, 2019. This is the mini golf tournament that's inside the Farmington Main Library. The cost is $60 a person. Food and beverages will be served, and you can register at www.farmingtonlibraries.org. And also, Jay Johnson told us that he will be attending, so if you want to see Jay one more time and all his wit and charm, certainly attend this event as well.
Thank you. TPC.
Yes, TPZ met last night. They met a little earlier because they were actually interviewing and selecting 3 candidates to add to the Architectural Design and Review Committee. They had 7 individuals that were interested in being on the committee. They each had 10 minutes to present on why they should be on the committee. After they were done presenting, the Planning and Zoning Commissioners discuss each candidate individually, and they approved 3 individuals to move forward to add on to the committee. So that was really the main thing that really happened on TPZ.
Thank you. UVIA.
UVIA had the Jingle Bell Jubilee this past weekend with caroling and decorating of Christmas cookies, and the Unionville Museum was also had trees that were decorated by a number of different entities, including the Girl Scouts. And it was a nice event, as it usually is.
Thank you. Water Pollution Control Authority.
No news to report. The next meeting is tomorrow.
Any other liaisons?
Yes.
Bruce.
Unionville Historic District.
Pardon me?
Unionville Historic.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, sorry. Unionville Historic. Oh, it's not on here. Oh, I'm sorry.
No problem.
I always forget one.
No worries. The Unionville Historic District Commission has begun kind of preliminary discussions on an educational meeting for the winter of 2019. This is going to be a historic home seminar and will be open to anyone in the public to attend. Like I said, right now it's just preliminary discussions, so once a date is chosen and more information becomes available, I'll provide an update to the Town Council.
Thank you. Now, other liaisons.
I do have
Go ahead,
something, Madam
Bruce.
Chair. The Farmington Retirement Board Committee met on December 3rd to review the performance of the investment portfolio for each quarter ending September 30th of 2018 and year to date. The investment portfolio performed well despite of the current economic challenges, returning 2% for each quarter. The members of the Retirement Board also discussed the status of the current contract with the Plan Investment Advisor, Fiduciary Investment Advisor, FIA. FIA was hired in June of 2011, initially hired for a 3-year term, and they are currently on a year-to-year contract, which is subject to renew during this June of this coming year. So the Retirement Board members decided to review the FAA current contract status and to explore feasibility of issuing a request for proposal for investment advisor services. This review and topic will be discussed more fully at the next board meeting, which will be held February in 2019. A date will be finalized as we get closer to that time.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Beth, do you want to?
Oh, sure. So last week I attended the Advanced Manufacturing Advisory Board at Tungus Community College. It's a new entity spearheaded by President Jim Labella, who's also the president at Assuntuck in Enfield Community College. They're bringing the advanced manufacturing program to Farmington at Tungus, and the point of the advisory board is to get employers in the manufacturing field together with educators and other people who can find students and potential candidates for the programs and matching those up. There's a huge need that's going unmet for manufacturers to find qualified people. The program will be set up to be a certificate program, but that can also be led to an associate's and even a bachelor's in manufacturing at CCSU. So again, around linking employers and students, I think the group will probably meet a few times a year. So bringing people together in the community with employers, and it's aimed at filling that huge need in manufacturing firms in the area, so it's exciting.
Okay. Report of the town manager. Kathy.
You have the written report in front of you. I'll just summarize some of the items. I think at the last meeting, Nancy, you had asked for maybe a summary of what we were doing, what we've done for our additional river crossing. So I tried to give just some background about that and some of the progress that we've made. And we did we asked for funding in 2018 with Representative Elizabeth Estes. We also did that in 2017, in 2018 again. We also requested a bond request from Mike D'Amico. On a side note, I did meet with Representative D'Amico today, and we were talking about various things, and I did stress to him about the bridge, and we did talk about it again at length, about how it would be a regional asset, and that we were really looking to him and our representatives to help us with trying to see if we could secure different funding sources and where we could look to. So we had a good conversation today about that. We recently applied for a grant through FEMA. That was in August, because as you know, because we have difficulty getting in and out of the community with the third bridge, we were hopeful that maybe through FEMA emergency management there would be some avenues for grants through that. And then we just recently wrote a letter, I think last week, to CROG. It was a public, not a public hearing, but just public comment on what the communities thought for long-range transportation plans. And we again wrote a letter saying that for the region it would be valuable to look to fund a third bridge. The town has really done their homework with regard to being ready for any type of grant. We've spent probably the last 2 years collecting data, analyzing data, hiring a consultant, and coming up with the drawings, because all these grants, you have to have the data to back it up to show that you have the, so you're ready for the grant. So we have done that, and we've also have design drawings ready to go for CROG. Our thought was hopefully in this new funding cycle with CROG that we'd be looking to apply for the design for the bridge, like the full design, and at a bridge, at between 40 or 50 million dollars, design is usually 10%, so you look at, a $4 or $5 million grant. So if you could, that would, then in the construction world, you'd be shovel ready if you had like the design ready to go, and then if a grant had come, you'd say, we're ready to go. So I don't know if this is what you were looking for, Nancy, but this is what I tried to give just a history on the bridge.
And the meeting that we had the other day, or you had, but I happened to attend with the staff about the roads in town, they were also very receptive of the bridge and talked about the safety issues, and Russ brought up all the different issues, and the fact that one of the things that was stressed a great deal was that it's not something, as Kathy mentioned, it's not just Farmington. This is really a regional. It will affect us regionally from Barkhamsted, Burlington, Avon, Canton. There are a lot of people that come down and go on Route 4 from those communities, more and more all the time. And many, do that instead of Route 44, but come here. And so it's not just Farmington, and that's what was stressed the other day at the meeting too, which, as I say, they were very receptive about and really seemed to be on board with us. So I hope that, we'll hear something about that possibility, and they have a lot, as Kathy said, all the safety studies and what it really means. And one of the things talked about was the other bridge, the Unionville Bridge, and taking some of the toll off of that bridge. We had it looked at a few years ago. They studied it and said, it didn't need work, but it's the only place to go over the bridge, to go over the river in that area. And if that wasn't there, if something does happen, if it does need repair. But in any event, they really talked about it in the safety issues as well. So I thought it was a great meeting, and it seems as though they're on board. So we're just hoping that they'll be receptive to funding and as time proceeds. So, and maybe get some federal money as well. So.
Before we get to the housing code, just Rose Ponte, our economic development director, put a memo to me just about our Beautify Farmington program, and everyone, I'm sure they've seen our Christmas balls outside in the bridge and in Unionville, and they really look nice, I think. And lastly, before the housing code, I'm recommending that the second January Town Council meeting, which is January 22nd, be the joint meeting with the Board of Education. And my understanding through the superintendent is that they're available on that day too, I think. But if that would work for everyone, then we wouldn't have to have an extra meeting, and we could do it at the second January meeting. The only other item on...
I just wanted to, that's what we'll do that meeting then, so you can put it on your calendar even now. So... Thank you.
And then the housing code, I have another draft for the town council to look at. As you can see, it's a separate attachment, and the changes are in bold or in the strike through. And one of the things that we talked about was maybe on the shrubs, be maintained as not to extend or infringe on beyond the property, and I took that out. And then what I did add, there was some conversation about what the enforcement would be. So I put that enforcement in, and that's modeling our zoning codes, our blight codes. The only thing that's a little bit different is that in the zoning codes, I think the violation can be up to $150 per day. I put it back to $100 a day because it's a grass ordinance. I didn't think zoning, I didn't need to be $150 a day. So I just picked 100. And so and it would follow the citation hearing, so there is an appeal process. And so those were the only changes that I made.
Yes.
Question on the bridge conversation.
Oh,
Sure.
If we have to buy land that we use to cross the river, can CROG or state resources be used for the purchase of that land up front too, or does that have to be Farmington money?
I would think there's probably a potential for the state, but I would think that would be Farmington money.
It's our money.
That would I would think it would be more typically our money.
But you do think they would contribute to the design up front? For all that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, historically, a transportation project like this is usually, 80-10-10 or 80-20, and usually the town usually pays for the design portion of it, and then they pay for the bridge when everything's all said and done. But I think at a project of this magnitude, we'd be applying for a grant for the design. Yeah, the design part of it, and then maybe look to maybe a bigger source like a federal government grant to do the bridge itself, because that type of money, even in the CROG, is a lot of money for one project through the region. So I think it'd be different avenues to do that. But the first thing would be to try to get the design done.
So on the housing code, any questions for Kathy?
I have a
Yes,
question.
Jeff.
Kathy, where it says, follow this, if it's at the bottom of the first page, under enforcement, if such violation has not been remedied within 10 days of the date of issuance of the citation, does that follow our blight ordinance? Okay, so it's the same number of days. Okay.
Yeah.
That seems short to me, but I thought if it's consistent, then it's probably best that it's in line with that. Thank you.
Other questions, concerns? Now, the one thing that you did mention, Kathy, was that it still needed to go through our attorney.
Yeah.
So the whole thing had to be.
Yeah, this whole portion still has to go through the town attorney.
Kathy, when you say this portion, do you mean the new portion or the full?
The full portion, I think, has gone through the town attorney already, and so, but this has not gone through the town attorney. When it's all said and done, when it comes to the public hearing, everything will have gone through the town attorney.
Okay. So no changes to this at this time. We're going to move forward.
So
Okay.
what we would really be looking at is that, depending on how long this would take, but I don't think it would take that long to vet this with the attorney, and then hopefully maybe in January it would be to set a public hearing for February, and then in February you'd have the public hearing. And that's it for my manager's report.
Okay, can I have a motion to accept the manager's report?
I move to accept the manager's report as presented.
Second?
Any questions now? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, appointments?
No appointments.
Okay. So we will move then, no old business, new business. Number 1, N1.
Okay. I move to approve the following resolution, which requires the submission of the State of Connecticut grant applications for the security vestibules at Union School as presented.
Second?
So you are going to see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Thank you, Bruce. 7 items that are all basically the same except for the different projects. This is common. We do this every year. The state has become more particular on how it's done. It has to be very specific. In the old days, we'd have the same thing, but it would be all projects, and then you would do it. Now they're making you break up every single project, and basically what you're doing is that you are approving a resolution that's required by the state, so we are able to receive grant reimbursement back. And so your first thing you're doing is you're authorizing the Board of Education to apply to the Commission of Administrative Services for a grant for the specific project. The second thing you're doing is that you're hereby making the Board of Education, and in most of these cases it's really the town staff, is their building committee. They're the person that the Board of Education is managing the project to make sure that it's being followed to the proper procedures. And third, you're authorizing at least for the preparation of the schematic drawings as outlined in the thing, so that you're allowing schematic drawings to be done for each of these projects. And all these are the requirements that have to be done so that the school is able to apply and receive reimbursement for the various projects.
Questions?
Sure.
Yes, Patty?
Kathy, when it says that we're authorizing at least the preparation of schematic drawings and outlines, what's the meaning of at least?
I think that my understanding of it is that they want to have schematic drawings, but some projects, again, these are blanket kind of resolutions. You may need much further designs. Schematics is like the bare minimum, so
Okay.
it says, when it says at least, so if you were putting something that was a very difficult project, you wouldn't just be doing schematic drawings, you would be doing much bigger design drawings.
So by saying at least, they won't have to come back to us if they need more
Right.
intensive
No.
drawing? Okay.
No.
Paul?
So kind of to follow up on Patty's question, so it's at least schematic drawings really up through construction documents. That's all we're technically authorizing tonight is the design.
No, you're actually, that the town council authorizes at least the schematic drawings as outlined. My understanding of it, this is all, they have to, I think the intent is, it says that they have to at least do the schematic drawings. Now, it doesn't come back to the council at all. And this is just that, I think to get funding, they have to show that they did at least schematic drawings for all of these different projects.
Okay. So if they go out to bid and all of the prices come back more, theoretically, what would we do at that point if everything was more?
The way that it's set up is that if you remember in your budget that each project has a dollar amount, so those dollar amounts cannot change unless it comes to the council. So if something comes out at a dollar amount, it would have to come back to the council to transfer money from one account to another account. And you'll see that in one of the items coming up.
Right.
But what has happened, and again, a lot of it has to do with how the state's requiring things for state funding. And it makes the process, I think, a little bit more difficult because realistically, we used to, and the town has it on their side, we may do roofs. And in the old days, and this is not in the old days, it's relatively recent, you'd have roof projects, and you'd go out to bid for roof projects. And roof on Irving A, you may have put down, and you thought it was going to cost, $300,000. And roof at Noah Wallace, you thought maybe was going to cost $400,000. But when you went out to bid, it was backwards. One was more and one was the other. Because it was all in one pot of money, that it would transfer. They would go and you'd use that part, you'd use just the roof replacements to do each one. Now it's set up that it's very, very specific, and that each project is so specific that it's difficult because you're not ever really sure it's going to come in exactly that amount. So I think when we get to a couple of items in, you are going to see more Board of Education capital projects come to this council because of the fact that the state is requiring it to be so specific, and that according to our ordinance and how things work, the council has to move the money around. So they're going to come back, and in the case that's coming up, the money is there. There's not any new money. It's just in different pockets. So they're asking to move it. Where in the old days, it was set up that the roofs would be in one, this would be in another, and it would be moving. It wouldn't come back to the council, but now it's going to.
It goes through us.
Now it goes through us. And it would always go through you, but it would only go through you if you didn't have enough money overall in the roof account. So let's say overall you did 3 roofs and you had $1 million budgeted for all your roofs, and it came into $1.1 million. But in your window account, you had $1 million and it only came in at $900,000. You would transfer money, it would come back to the council, and they'd ask to transfer money from the windows into the roofs. Now, every roof is an individual account, and the state is even, you probably wouldn't remember, but how it's set up, we even have it is that it's very hard to manage this way, is that the roof Irving A. Robbins is like roof A, B, and C versus roof C, D, and E. And so no one bids like that. So that's like a silly way, but that's the way the state wanted us to set it up. So it's very, very project specific now.
Thanks.
Other questions? So with that said, what if it's a significant number of dollars less? What happens to that? I mean, I know you don't bond until you bond the amount you need, but so that if they're coming in not at the same time, and I don't know if they generally would come in at, they send them out to bid and all 7 roofs are going to come in at, relatively the same time. We could conceivably be looking at it coming to the council time after time.
Yeah, but again, yes, you could, because
So
this
if
is
it's
what
less,
just, yeah.
It's just gonna be there, but they still have to come for the overage to us.
If there's not, in this specific account, if there's not enough money, they have to come to the council. If it's less, it comes in under budget, it stays in the account and it's not spent. And then if you remember, at the end of the year, you look at all the capital expenditures and it stays in the account. And then the council can decide what they want to do with those extra, the money that's left in there in
Okay.
each account.
And nothing will be spent on anything else. If it's 300,000 less than what they expected, if it's 700 instead of the million, that's just there until the end of the year.
Yes. Yes, except
And then we
yeah.
have the council has an accountability from the board as to whatever the amounts are
Right.
at that time.
Exactly. But I do think what you're going to find, like I said, because it's so specific, which it's never been before, I think you're going to see, which is a good thing, there's a lot of projects. There's a lot of projects. So I think you're going to see whatever the one is on in your agenda. You're going to see that quite a bit because you're going to have to move the money around in the different accounts because we didn't know what they were, and it's so specific where it's not in the big groupings anymore. So I think you're going to see items like you see coming up quite a bit.
Okay.
Kathy,
Yes.
can I just clarify something?
Yeah.
These are bond projects, so you're not going to see it at the end of each year. You may never actually see it. What's going to happen is we're going to bond the net dollar amount for each project. So the project will be done. We'll advance the cash. We'll submit for state reimbursement. Once we get to state reimbursement, then we'll issue the bonds. So what will happen at the end of these projects, if there's money left over, we won't issue the bond proceeds. The authorization will lapse. So if there is cash left over at the end, then that cash would go back to pay back debt service. So.
Right, but Joe, I was confused because what I described is still going to happen on the cash projects.
On cash projects, you're correct.
Yes, I didn't realize these were the bonding ones. On the bonding ones, you just don't bond.
Right.
But you still, for state funding, you have to show that you're moving the money.
Right. Basically, the purpose of doing this, we went through this last June, you may recall. We had a special council meeting where we actually had it be passed with several resolutions reaffirming your appropriations for specific projects. Basically, what the state is requiring is that they want to make sure that we have a commitment of the money in place before they approve a grant. These are school construction grants that they're applying for these vestibules. So under that program, you have to actually have the money in place. You have to be able to identify, and the state has to be comfortable that you have the money and authorization in place or the funds in place for the project. And the second part of what you're doing is the schematics relate to, the state will actually approve the schematics. You have to submit with your application shortly after your application the schematics to the state of Connecticut for their approval. And just helps them to verify that the cost estimates that you have are adequate cost estimates.
But these projects, what was, I thought, interesting was, I know it says at least the preparation of schematic drawings, but it is including the schematic drawings as well as the construction of that project. Both of those
Right,
things.
at a minimum, you're authorizing the schematics. They can do, once you appoint a building committee, since it's true for any building committee, once you appoint a building committee, they're off and running. So, and the money's in place. So you appointed a building committee and you're authorizing, at a minimum for them to develop the schematics, and then after that, once they get state approval for the grant reimbursement, or even if they don't get state approval, once the building committee is established and authorized, they just go ahead with the project.
And who's overseeing that?
eventually the council oversees that. They have a pot of money, and they can't exceed that pot of money.
And who's overseeing the project though, when the bids come in and whether you get this bid or that bid?
The school building, any building committee that you authorize, you've done this for every
But on these cases, it's the board of
right,
education.
in this case, the Board of Education is the school building committee, is the building committee. So they'd have ultimate say.
They have ultimate say except if it goes over the amount that.
Right, if it goes over the amount, they cannot obviously let a contract for in excess of the amount that's appropriated.
But Joe, what to me, what seems like it's different from the state and how we're setting up things is that the state seems like they want us now to verify that we have the money, even though we bonded the money and it was approved, which seems kind of, it's like they're making us jump through a lot of hoops to verify these bonding numbers when we approved the bonding numbers at a referendum, but now they're making them, now we're putting it in, we got it approved, and now we have more motions, right?
Right, yeah, we have that extra step, and again, going back to similar to what we did in June, we would appropriate a pot of money for X number of projects, and that's the way our bonding resolutions passed in April at the referendum. The state, and what we would do in the past is we would write a letter to the state. I would write a letter to the state and say, we've authorized $2 million, and that includes funds for the IAR roof or the high school roof or whatever. And the state would say, great, and they would go with that. The state doesn't allow that any longer. They want to see specific dollars appropriated or assigned to specific projects. So again, in June, we came back to the council and said, we know we have $2 million for roofs. Now we have to identify each roof with the dollar amount, and the state wants to see that, and they want to see that in the budget that way. So, and like Kathy said, in a couple of items from now, you could actually do another reaffirmation of your appropriation, moving money around. Basically what Kathy was saying, we'll be moving money to make sure the state, to satisfy the state requirement that we have sufficient funds in place. I would expect that you're going to continue to do this as long as there are projects and as long as the state has this requirement.
One of the things, Joe, that I could be wrong on this, that I thought was part of this for you is you go out to bond certain things when it's a good time. So you would bundle things along the way. Are you still able to do that even though this time frame seems a little different? You can still.
Yeah. Bonding is the bonding part of it is really. You always want to ideally go when it's a good market.
Right. Well, that's what you do.
But at the same time, school projects are a little trickier, and I think we've talked about this during with other projects. Is one, you're running into competing or conflicting statutes both on the federal and state level. We advance cash for our practices. We have sufficient cash so we could advance cash for small projects. However, the federal government, IRS, says that's only good, you can only do that for up to 18 months. After 18 months, you have to issue bonds. So, but the state at the same time may not give you your grant within that 18-month time period. So sometimes you're guessing how much you actually have to bond. So when I get to, you get to the 14th month where you have 4 months left, if we don't have the state grant in at that point, or a portion of it, we don't know the final numbers, we'll probably over bond or under bond just to make an estimate as what we're going to get. So there's a lot of variables now as to when you actually bond money or borrow money based on any projects where there's reimbursements involved.
Okay. Go ahead.
Just one more on the design. So I know the construction obviously goes out for bid. Are these schematic designs or construction drawings, are those bid out too? Or is there just somebody on standby?
Yes.
Those are bid out?
Yes.
They've all been bid out.
They've already been bid out and we've selected designer? Is it the same firm for all of them? Or,
I don't know that. I believe so, but I'm not certain. I can't answer that.
Okay. Thanks, Joe and Kathy. So we have a motion on the floor. Anything else right now? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions. N2.
I move to approve the following resolution, which requires the submission of the State of Connecticut grant applications for the security vestibules at East Farms Elementary School.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? N3.
I move to approve the following resolution, which requires the submission of the State of Connecticut grant application for the security vestibules at Irvin A. Robbins Middle School.
Second.
Questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? N4.
I move to approve the following resolution, which requires the submission of the State of Connecticut grant application for the security vestibules at Westwood Upper Elementary School.
Second.
Questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? N5.
I move to approve the following resolution, which requires for submission of the State Connecticut grant application for the office relocation of West District Elementary School.
Second.
Questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? N6.
I move to approve the following resolution, which requires for the submission of the State of Connecticut grant application for the roof replacement project at Union Elementary School.
Second.
Questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? N7.
I move to approve the following resolution, which requires the submission of the State of Connecticut grant application for the roof replacement project at Irvin A. Robbins Middle School, as presented.
Second.
Any questions? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, N8.
I move that the pursuant to a borrowing and appropriation resolution in the amount of $1,995,000 approved by the voters at the townwide referendum on April 26 of 2018 for the school roof replacement, the Farmington Town Council affirms that the appropriation shall be spent in the following manner from, I'm assuming I have to read all this, right?
I would just say as attached or as presented.
As presented.
Second.
Any questions on, or
Just-
Kath? Okay.
One comment, 1,995,000
Oh, what did I say?
Million.
Yeah.
Just wanted to clarify.
Oh my goodness. It's one,
Okay.
yeah,
That's good.
okay, thank you.
So as the note, the finalized cost estimates recently provided by the project architect required realignment of the authorized funds. The total authorized amount for these two roof projects is sufficient. However, realignment is needed to appropriately identify the correct funds needed for each project, as well as to combine the original two IAR line items into one roof project. This will then accurately represent these two school roof project estimated cost and appropriately identify them for future reimbursement grant submission. And this is again what we have to send to the state, Joe, to show that this is how much it actually cost.
And these have already gone out to bid. These are the bid numbers, correct?
These are the architect's estimates of what they're
And so,
Oh, okay.
and so, Joe, just again, if for some reason when the bids come back in and the numbers are different again, is there a chance that we're going to see another item that looks like this?
There's a very
Yeah.
good, well, I shouldn't say very good possibility, there's always a possibility that could happen.
Yeah.
Um,
If if you have to realign again.
Right, you could have the potential that you may have to realign. The next time around, however, though, you're only would be going between 2 projects or 3 projects as opposed to 4 projects. So we're getting back to the lump sum concept here, but it's the architect feels very comfortable with the estimates, and we feel comfortable with the potential reimbursements, and we feel that based on the architect's estimates and the potential grant reimbursements, this should be sufficient. However, we won't really know that until the bidding actually takes place.
Okay. So we won't, and once that process happens, the council doesn't know unless it's an overage.
Correct, it's an overage, you'll know, and because they'll have to come back to get this realigned again. And then at some point, this does actually show up in our year-end financial reports, and actually when you deliberate on the budget or on the capital project, if you recall, last year I gave that
Yes.
multi-page schedule of all the different projects and stuff. It does show up in there also, so you will get to see it in the financial report that's audited by the auditors, and in that other financial report that I provided, I guess in February. So,
And as in the past, we would see all that information and then be able to make judgments on our further budgeting with
Right.
that in mind, because we know whether there were huge overages or not, or what's going on. So we'd be able to have an idea so we know how to move forward at that time, correct?
Right.
You'll make sure you let us know. Okay, thank you. Anything else? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions. N9.
I move to ratify the tentative collective bargaining agreement between the town of Farmington and the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employee AFL-CIO Local 1689 for a period of July 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2021.
Second.
So we're pleased that we were able to come to an agreement, a tentative agreement with our ASME bargaining unit. This is a 3-year agreement contract from July 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2021. Highlights, before I say that, just ASME is our largest bargaining unit. It has 70 members. It's our secretarial, clerical, public works, dispatchers, some professional staff. It's approximately $4.8 million in payroll, and the union has ratified this agreement. The highlights are it's a 3-year contract, which I just mentioned. There is some various language and procedure changes that are positive enhancements to the town's operations. Procedural changes. We're creating a maximum accumulated holiday time for emergency dispatch center employees, which there is currently no maximum, which is very good language for the town. We have incremental health insurance premium cost sharing increases, as well as increases in prescription drug pays. So it's 21, 22, and 23%. And again, on the public sector, on the municipal side, that's very high for their numbers. The cost of the 3-year contract is 5.68% increase, or 1.89% each year. So we always try to work hard to keep our contracts under 2%. We're able to do that by the offset of wages with the increase in cost sharing and health insurance and increases in drug copays. And per the town council's direction, the town will be offering a voluntary HDHP for July 1st, 2019, and this plan will be offered to all town employees. With the objective of moving employees off the PPO plan, we expect the rollout to start in 2019 to educate employees. The wages are for 3 years, 2.5, 2.35, and 2.35. So I think this is, we've got some new language in the contract that I think is very positive. Our co-pays and co-shares are getting very high, which I think is going to give people incentives to voluntarily go over the HDHP plan for us, which is our objective, and keeping the overall contract with our biggest bargaining unit under 2%. I think this is a very fair contract for the town, and also a fair contract for our largest bargaining unit.
Excuse me, questions? Okay. Well, thank you very much for that hard work. And everyone in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions. Okay, N10.
I move to authorize the Farmington Town Manager to execute on behalf of the Farmington Town Council a personal service agreement with the State of Connecticut for financial assistance to the Westwood Elementary School playground, and to enter into such agreement, the contract, and execute all documents necessary to said grant with the State of Connecticut.
Second.
As you, I think, all know, is that we were recently awarded a $50,000 grant through the Urban Act Authority by the Department of Environmental Protection towards the renovation of the Westwoods Elementary School playground. This motion will allow the town of Farmington to receive the $50,000 grant. It's authorizing me to sign the paperwork for it.
Any questions?
My only comment is it's a Department of Energy and Environmental Protection.
Oh, yes. Old language, huh? Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions. N11.
I move to amend the Chapter 51 pension of the Town of Farmington Code as attached to reflect the approved changes negotiated with the Farmington Public School Employees United AFT.
Second.
And we're working off, it's the same thing, but the one that was left at your places, because there was a small typo, and you say on page 2, it's effective July 1st, 2019, Farmington Public School Employees United. ATF members hired after this date will not be eligible to be part of this plan.
Okay, any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, N12.
I move to authorize the town manager to write a letter to the probate judge, Evelyn Daly, in support of the name change from the Farmington Burlington Probate Court to the Farmington Regional Probate Court.
Second.
Judge Daly had asked if the council would be willing to write a letter of support to change the name. As you read in the note, the town of Plainville is going to be moving into our court, and so we would like to change the name to the Farmington Regional Probate Court.
Any questions?
I have a question. I don't know if it's really related. It's not really related just to the town or the name change, and I understand that we're going to be adding some business, I guess, to the probate court. Does it affect space in town hall? We hear that town hall, in some areas anyways, bursting at the seams, but how does this affect workspace?
The move is we do need space. That said, is that the judge has not asked for any additional space because of the move coming in. So I think that in general we do have a pretty severe space crunch, but I don't think that Plainville moving in is going to. The judge did not ask for any additional space.
Other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? N13.
I move to waive the bidding requirements under Section 55-1 of the Town of Farmington Purchasing Ordinance so that the fire department may contract with Simpson Fire Equipment Company of Waterford, Connecticut to replace the Scott self-contained breather apparatus at Farmington Fire, Oakland Gardens at a cost not to exceed $150,000.
Second.
You have the note in front of you, and this we're asking to waive the bidding requirements based on the issue of the mask being the same as the other mask. And I'm going to ask Joe to maybe just brief the council on this motion.
Under the purchasing ordinance, the council has the ability to waive bid requirements. Normally, we would bid something like this out. Actually, that's not true. We would not bid this out because normally there's a regional or cooperative bid for this. The cooperative bid expired in 2017. It has not been renewed. What we're running into is we have the same breathing apparatus for everybody, and we've tried to maintain compatibility or have the same for all the firefighters. They all get tested on it. They all get measured on it. They all get trained on it. So we try to maintain the same fire breathing apparatus. What we did in the past was we would buy units. You have to replace the units. You should replace the units on a 10-year basis. What we would do is we would replace the units as needed, and we would do 1 or 2 at a time, 3 or 4. What happened was in 2016, the company, Scott's, which is actually Scott's 3M, changed the mask on the breathing apparatus so that the old units that we had no longer were compatible with the masks. So we had to go out, we had to do a major replacement program, and we phased it in over time. And basically we were doing $150,000 per company, or per, I guess we call it per company, Tunx's Hose, East Farms, and Farmington, Oakland Garden. So we're doing it over time. Again, we're using a contract that expired in 2017. We have the money in place to do this at this time. We want to maintain the same apparatus, the same breathing apparatus, the same unit, so we don't have to retrain everybody. We do have the ability to cannibalize if we need to cannibalize. And this is actually, we won't have to make another purchase like this for another 10 years once we make this purchase. Shipmans is the local distributor for Scott's. They're located here in Connecticut. We've bought the other, through the old cooperative contract, we bought the the self-contained breathing apparatus through them. So we would just like to continue to do so. They actually also have the contract to service our apparatus, our breathing apparatus when they need repair.
Questions? Go ahead.
Madam Chair, I have a question. We budgeted $160,000 for this. Why is it a not to exceed 150?
Basically what we did is the quote came in at $148,000. So just basically holding it, that contract at $148,000. If there's any money left over, we gave them a little leeway at $150, and if there's any money left over at the end, if we need to replace anything, because we're not going to have, this will use up all of our funds except for a small portion. If we do need to have any money, any replacements take place until the next time we come and ask for money in the capital budget, we would have some available funds left to buy one or two if we need to replace them. So hopefully we won't have to, but normally we've always had a little bit of money in the capital budget. I don't want to give away, of course, I don't know if it's going to happen or not, but the fire department didn't request funds for next year or for the next 5 years for breathing apparatus, so we just want to have a little bit of cushion in there.
So the intent would be then to hold, if it's 148, the additional 12,000
Right.
for the next 10 years.
Yes.
Right, or unless we have a major breakdown within the next 10 years, we would try to use that 12,000 for replacement purposes for as long as we can.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, N14.
I move to award the contract for an upgrade of the radio communication system at various WPCA pump station to Northeastern Communication, Inc. of Naugatuck, Connecticut at a cost not to exceed $66,000.
Second.
So this is purpose of this motion is to contract with a vendor to supply and install radio equipment and upgrade the communication systems at the various sanitary sewer pump stations throughout town. These communication systems are used by the WPCA staff to monitor operations at the pump station. Most importantly, the communication systems serve as alarms when there is a problem at the pump station so that WPCA staff can respond. The estimated value of the contract is $66,000, and there is money in the WPCA department capital budget for this purpose. The contract award would be under the state contract, and this is going to the council because it's over $50,000.
Other questions?
Madam Chair?
Yes, sure.
I know that we don't have, my recollection is, I should say, that we didn't do anything with the WPCA capital budget. So why does this part come before us?
Very interesting you asked that, because I asked the same question to Joe. The reason why is because the purchasing ordinance says that everything comes to the council over $50,000, other than from the Board of Education. So even though you guys don't do the Board of Education's budget, the purchasing ordinance is clear that anything over $50,000, regardless if it's the water pollution control, still comes to the council.
Okay. Other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? N15.
I move to approve the following property tax refund totaling $7,875.62.
Second.
Questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Any?
Do we have both?
We have both executive sessions tonight. And
Okay.
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 Go ahead. 01.
I move to executive session to discuss matters concerning a sale or acquisition of real estate property. In attendance of this meeting will be members of the town council and the town manager.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay.
It's going to be at 7:13 because that's slow.
8:13.
I mean 8.
809.
Okay.
I have 809.
Thank you, everyone.
Phones aren't right.
Right.